Welcome to Masculinity Now with Arabella Tornau. This episode today on Masculinity Now with Arabella Tornau and my guest, Jeff. Jeff, I actually don't know your last name.
Marquardt, Jeff Marquardt.
Marquardt, Jeff Marquardt. And I'm really, really honored and excited to have this episode today with Jeff because it's a very special episode. We are recording this episode right now at Creeken Wellness Resort in Ireland. And Jeff and me, we met the first time for sure in this lifetime here today, 1 week ago, in person. But it already felt like we know each other for many, many years before.
Yes.
And Jeff and me, we had like really beautiful, and I think we also created our own little vortex at this time where we had a conversation on the table. And before we go deeper into the conversation, I just want to say thank you to this place where we're at right now, and also to Ray and Colby, because we are on Elevate's wellness retreat here in Ireland, and this vortex is held by the beautiful energy of Derek O'Neill and his lineage, and I feel very blessed and honored to be here and to have this conversation right now in the Yellow Rose Room. So thank you for that. And who wants to hear more also about Ray can listen to the previous episode, because we recorded an episode about karma, the wheel of suffering, and dharma, and you can listen to that on this podcast as well. And for now, I want to dedicate this podcast to say thank you that you have the time to sit here with me today and talk about you and your experiences and where you're at in your journey and what lesson you learned along this journey of life. And I'm so interested to know more of what we already talked upon in our table discussion. And I think I would love right now for you, my first question I have is, before we go deeper into your journey, how are you feeling right now, and what was your biggest intention to come here on this retreat?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, I'm feeling very centered and grounded. The energy in this room it's potent. It's very much aligned with the energy of this whole property and the retreat itself, and the teachings of SQ and Derek O'Neill. My intent behind this coming here for this 5-day retreat has always been just a continuation of what this year has represented for me. And it has been a breakthrough year in all areas of my life. And one of where I have finally was able to put into practice the many various teachings, personal and spiritual teachings of SQ, and really come away with what I call coming home to myself, to my core self, and release and let go of the story and the illusion of feeling less than, and something that's been really steeped in a low self-worth and a deep-rooted shame, and really let go of that and step into more sovereign empowerment of who I am to the central core, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I have a feeling this is probably not going to be the last podcast I'm going to do with you, because I could probably talk for hours about the whole journey itself and where I'm at today and where I see myself going, both in my personal and professional life. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And I do feel the same, because the minute we were sitting down, I really felt like so drawn to have this conversation with you. And I asked you, hey, do you want to join this podcast? Because this podcast is really dedicated to, especially to men on their spiritual path, on their healing journey, and to give an understanding of what is next. Like we got into this conversation because of your previous addictions to alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something what really brings me to what really draws me to have this conversation, because there's so much already in the word already, addiction. And there's the alcohol substances. And on the other hand, it doesn't even matter what addiction we have. It matters what is the underlying reason of that. And I'm always very interested in regards of where does addiction come from, or why do you had like the feeling of, why was it necessary also in your awakening journey to experience the lessons that addiction, and in your case the addiction to alcohol, had for you?
Yeah. Well, to your point, to your first point, addiction is so prevalent in America and Western society, and across the globe. And the thing about addiction, many people might not realize, is it takes so many different forms. I think addiction to drugs and alcohol is so magnified because it's so in your face, so to speak. But there's all kinds of addictions. There's addictions to food, sex, porn, internet, dysfunctional relationships, smoking, gambling. I mean, it runs the full spectrum of the human experience, right? So, one of my favorite talks is by Ram Dass, and he talks about addiction and attachment. And attachment is just addiction, I should say. It's just a perverse form of attachment. One of the first things that happens with most human beings is they become separated, if you will, from the one, from the divine essence within ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's just the nature of being human. So once we become separated, we, from that point, and this is not my words, this is Ram Dass, and I'm paraphrasing, but he says that once that separation happens, and it could happen quite quickly and unbeknownst to us as an infant, we're not aware of this, it's very unconscious, but once that happens, from that point forward, we innately have a desire to reconnect to the divine. Oftentimes we're guided that the divine is something out in the heavens rather than something within ourselves. And it doesn't matter what you believe. If you feel connected to something outside of yourself, that's awesome. But we become misguided in that desire to tap into something that's bigger than ourselves. And usually as we become older, it takes form, not always an addiction, but usually an attachment to a person, to an experience, to a substance, to a behavior, so on and so forth. So that's exactly what happened to me. I was born into this world, for good or bad, for right or wrong. I was born into this world, what I feel, with a deep-rooted shame. And there's no blame on my mom or dad or previous generations. That's my karma that I had to go through. I'm still trying to tap into exactly what that karma is. That's a deeper question, and at this point, probably not relevant to my journey. It probably will be at some point, but I was told by my teacher and various other individuals that I've been through 700 lifetimes, not so much with addiction, but with the issues behind the addiction. Brings me up to your second point of the addiction not necessarily is the problem. It's a symptom of something going on underneath. So it's a symptom of our misguided attempt to discover something deeper within ourselves. And what happens is a lot of people put a Band-Aid on the addiction, but don't necessarily get at the heart of what's going on underneath the addiction. And I would love to change that paradigm, because I think there are a lot of people that struggle. They might be abstinent from alcohol, for example, and they might have 60 days or 3 years of sobriety, but they might not be fulfilling their life's goal, and they are not probably content with themselves because they really haven't fixed the underlying issue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much. This is so potent. And when we were talking briefly about that, I mean, it was not even briefly, it was also really in depth, but it was still very clear that we are both like having the same perspective of the world view right now, and not right now, but in regards of like what is sobriety, and that also sobriety doesn't equally mean becoming free. So what is next? What is next in store when, yes, we have the previous like problem, let's call it like this way, and we have addiction. So we have like the society tells us, okay, you're suffering from addiction, so you need healing. Okay, what can we do for healing? You need to go into rehab. You do all those rehab programs, and I'm sure you can also talk a little bit more about your experiences, and also give us a little bit more background knowledge of in regards of how long were you addictive to alcohol, and what started also your healing process, where you actually like, what was also your wake up moment. I would love to go also like deeper to that, but before we go deeper into because I'm always like so fascinated by the story, what was the cause of like your awakening? What was the cause of like, okay, I hit a specific floor and I hit a specific moment. What was it?
Yeah, and I knew this question was coming up because the question has actually been posed to me a few times, not only this year, but actually on this retreat. And it's hard to put into words. So I'm going to do my best. And actually, before I came up to the spot where we're doing an interview here, I wrote a few things down. But first and foremost, I will say that it's certainly been a process, and again, my story and what people have to realize, what I have to realize and you have to realize, and people that listen to this podcast has to realize, is this is my story. And everyone's story is uniquely different, although in some ways it's very universal, if that makes sense. There's a lot of different common threads are involved in the attachment and addiction, and therefore in healing and recovery. And also, I love that word, and it's also vastly different. For me, the last 10 years have been pretty much in and out of my dark nights of the soul, is what I call it. And if someone listening to this podcast doesn't know what that means, it really means hitting your absolute bottom and stepping into the darkness that you didn't even know existed. And when I say bottom, and again, this is my story, other people's stories are different, but you're listening to someone that not once or twice, but many times over the last 10 years have lost everything and ended up homeless, living on the streets. Homeless in Charlotte, North Carolina during the wintertime where it snows. Homeless in Boulder, Colorado during the wintertime where it snows. holding up a sign in the middle of a freaking blizzard, looking for money so I can buy a bottle just to get the shakes off. Homeless in Santa Cruz, California, where I live now during the rainy season, and losing everything, having us in and out of having some sober time, but for some reason I had self-sabotage mechanism that created this tendency to destroy everything and end up drinking. And again, you're not talking to someone where just maybe I'll have a few beers. It's go to CVS or Safeway, a local grocery store, and buy the biggest bottle of vodka I could find and just drown myself in liquor. And really, it's not so much I wanted to die, just to get really blunt here. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to continue living the way I was living. So it was, in a way, a form of slow suicide, and it's scary. It's scary to think that it gets to that point. And I did not see any way out. This, mind you, this was after I've been probably to 20 different rehabs.
Wow.
Maybe 10 of those rehabs in the last 10 years. I've been in and out of the ER, emergency room, in Santa Cruz alone within the last 4 years, probably about 35 times.
Wow.
So just, and able to get, 4 or 5 months of sobriety and then just throwing it out the window. And it was very puzzling to me. It was very puzzling to friends and family, and very frustrating to friends and family. But it was very puzzling to me, who knew what I was capable of, but still I was throwing my life down the drain. And I think it really comes to, I know now it comes down to not loving myself, and unfortunately, until you get to a point where you realize that you have to love yourself enough to do something different. And so what transpired at the end of last year, or at the very beginning of this year, January 2nd, I made a conscious decision to stop doing what I was doing. Conscious decision. And I think towards the beginning of this year, I would say it was solely divine intervention, and certainly a lot of it has to do with divine intervention. There are a lot of things that went into that equation, grace and gratitude for certain things that went into that equation. Stepping into the SQ teachings, for example, having an awesome therapist I've been seeing for 3 years, for example, being in Santa Cruz where there are many avenues of different avenues of support that were offered to me. But I have to take credit, and it was a story of triumph. I have to take credit for making that decision to finally say, are you done with this? And, for anyone that's listened to this podcast, you have a family member, and I'm getting goosebumps saying this, if you have a friend or a family member that's struggling, unfortunately, other than having a huge heart and being there for them, in a loving, unconditional, loving way, you cannot make that decision for them. Does that make sense? They have to be able to come to that threshold and say, I'm done. My life I have too much to offer to the world. And that's also what it came down to. God showed me, however way, maybe in a later podcast, I can word it better if this is not coming through, but God showed me, you are still on this earth for a reason.
Yeah.
You are on this earth for a reason. And I went on a retreat in beautiful Mount Shasta in July of this year. And I remember talking about my story. I'm very open with everyone about my story. I'm not shameful of it at all. Even my people at work, within the very first few days of when I joined my company in February, I was very upfront with people about everything. And I was sitting down in front of 2 ER nurses from Stanford at this retreat in Mount Shasta, and I was telling them my story, essentially, in a 10,000-foot overview. And I was mentioning how many times I was admitted to a local hospital in Santa Cruz with a blood alcohol level. Now, when I say this number, some people listen to this podcast might just, hope you're sitting down. A blood alcohol 0.56 and higher. Not once, not twice, many times over. And the ER nurses almost fell out of their we were sitting all on a picnic table or a table ahead, and they were just blown away. And I'm not saying that to get any kudos. I'm saying that's how high my tolerance was. And that is comatose in death for most people.
Yeah.
So long story short, yes, I had to make a decision this year to ask myself, do you want to continue doing what you're doing? Because essentially I was on the path. I mean, the next step was to go to CVS, not buy one biggest bottle of vodka, but buy 2 or 3 and just say, I'm done. I'm done. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing this so openly, because this is exactly what taught me so much talking to you, because you have so much wisdom and you have so much love and you have so much grace for yourself that many men and women, they need to hear this, because many times we believe that we are alone with our story, and many times we believe that there is no way out, and many times we are not connected to our heart's wisdom because of so many reasons. You name it. We can't talk for others because we don't know their path, we don't know their karma, we don't know what they need to deal from, what they need to learn. And some decisions in life, like you said, we can't make, like all decisions in life we can't make for others, but we can make them for ourselves. And there's always a lesson that we are actually like learning from, but we need to be open for divine intervention. We need to be open for this path, and we need to be open for higher guidance. And that you were open for these messages and that you were open for those higher guidance mean that you have such a gift to share to this world. Yeah. And so many other beings too. And I'm so grateful to talk with you about this today, because in every darkness there's the light. But we are the people who need to open the door for the light to enter. And you open this door.
Yeah, somebody can be shown, and hopefully, when someone is going through this, thank you for what you just said. When someone's going through this, certainly they need guidance. They need someone to, maybe I had a therapist, I think, once said, I'm here to shine a light in the dark cave, if you will, right? Or maybe, have a mentor or a coach or a teacher, someone to lead you, to guide you to a certain threshold. I think of a dark cave, or I think of an entryway, mm-hmm. And they can lead you to that point, but guess what? They're going to let go of your hand at some point, mm-hmm. and you need to take ownership and take that step where it's, what's the saying, take one step towards God, and God one step, and God takes 99 steps, or something like that. But reality is too, it takes a certain amount of trust and faith.
Yeah.
And that's where I struggle, because for me to trust or have faith in something, I'm more of a hands-on experience. I need to feel that experience, and it's hard for me to blindly trust something or mm-hmm. blindly have faith in something that I can't feel, can't touch, Yeah. And so that's the difficult decision you have to make, But when you said something, oh yeah, I want to speak of, is it okay if we dive into divine masculinity, sacred masculinity, and divine feminine, or?
Beautiful. I just to say one word, like I wanted to also know before we go there, because it's all connected anyway, because you just said like taking ownership, and has a lot to do with like the divine masculine within us, take responsibility for our action, and to also like walk through the shadow of shame, and asking also the shame what was there to be learned from. And I wanted to ask you, before we go there, when was the last time that you drank?
Yeah, a lot of people, when they go through recovery, especially people that do the 12-step program, AA, have, countdown days. I don't do that. I know it was towards the end of last year. So it was just, I want to say a few days before Christmas of 2022, because I was in ER for the umpteenth time. And then I got released from the ER after being there for a week or 10 days or something. And I made it back to I still had a place to live. And then I made a decision to not pick up a drink since then. So, but yeah, there was a few days after. So right going into the new year, I was still on the fence. I didn't know, it was one of those, that was kind of like, it wasn't I just woke up one morning and said, okay, I'm not going to drink today. It was just a few days where I went back and forth. And I'm like, Jeff, what do you want to do? Where are we going to go with this?
Yeah.
Because if I chose to go right and continue on that path, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I think I'd be 6 feet under, to tell you the truth. But it was in the first few days of this year, probably New Year's Day, maybe the second day, I made a conscious decision to say, I'm doing things differently. Yeah.
Do you miss it?
No, absolutely not.
Beautiful.
Absolutely not. I have no desire to alter my state of consciousness.
Yeah.
And I've told people many times on various satsang calls and people at work, I haven't had a bad day this year yet, and I was telling one of my coworkers, I could walk into work tomorrow and be told that I don't have a job. They're letting me go. I work for a nonprofit. So, my job's pretty secure. I'm good at what I do. I work in accounting and finance right now. But, even if I came in and they said, well, guess what, Jeff, we can't do this anymore. We're not getting the funding. We're not have to get in the grants. And, here's your pink slip or whatever it is, however they do it. Or I could be told I'm getting evicted. I mean, I wouldn't be getting it. They love me where I'm at. But, the shit can really hit the fan right now, and that still would be no reason to drink. There's no reason to alter my state of consciousness now. And the other thing I want to touch upon is my story has been coded with not only numbing uncomfortable feelings, the shame and the insecurities and the loneliness. Loneliness and being alone is a huge chunk of my story. And loneliness is such a heavy, heavy feeling. I mean, it's very easy to want to get out of that through a behavior or through substances, because it's such a heavy feeling. No one wants that emotional feeling of being alone and loneliness. That could be a whole nother podcast right there.
Yeah. And in regards to addiction anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there is a difference between being alone and having loneliness. That could be a whole topic right there, which I'm very well versed in. But going back to my point of, not only is my story laced with, yes, I don't want to feel this freaking loneliness anymore, and usually I know, as you can tell, if you can't see me, but when my therapist says, where are you feeling the emotion in my body? I hate when she says that, because I don't feel my emotions in my body, other than I reach up to my head and I grab my forehead. I'm like, just get it out. It's all in my freaking head, tightness or whatever you want to call it. But so not only do I have that dynamic of want to numb myself, but then I also have that dynamic of, I shouldn't say I have this anymore, because I don't. When life is good, I want to accentuate it. Let's bump up that high, in airports and hotels and going away, and let's celebrate. Look at how well I've done. I have almost 6 months where this year is going so freaking awesome, and I'm in shape and I'm doing great with my job, and let's celebrate. So let's accentuate this high. I want to mention that, because I don't think a lot of people, it's very unconscious. And you don't realize you're in that territory until you're picking up a drink. And there's a huge part of the whole socialization of alcohol that's wrapped in celebrating.
Right.
And etc. Getting that buzz. Why do we drink? Because we get the buzz.
Yeah.
A lot of us. Some people like to taste the red wine or taste the Guinness, but Yeah, a lot of times it is to get that buzz, to accentuate a good feeling, to celebrate. So that's a dynamic, and there's a whole ritualistic component of that. I want to, and that's maybe further discussion, but I wanted to highlight that as well, because that was very prevalent in my story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you feel that this buzz, that you feel like that you felt, or like that we in the society feel because like there are several kinds of addiction that are not going to be like talked upon, and then there's addiction that actually like, from the society standpoint, they're actually like, like alcohol is like legal and everything is like legal and getting the bus and everything. Do you feel like this is a state of bliss, is a state of blissful feeling in regards to the bus, or in regards to like, okay, let's make the conscious decision or unconscious decision. I want to escape my reality that I'm actually currently in, because and now we come to the term of like feminine and masculine, and I'm really excited to talk with you deeper about that in regards to purpose, and in regards to, okay, what was it unconsciously that you were looking for? What made you feel going down the spiral of addiction, got you the message in regards of like, well, this is not the life that I actually want to create, but I have the opportunity when I decide that I want this life to create a life of purpose. I would like to go deeper in this range, because a lot of things have to do with what is my purpose in life, and many clients of mine, and we always hear this, like we always have those moments of like, what is my purpose? And do you feel in your experience that there's a bridge in between of like, what is my purpose, and also like not knowing what my purpose is, and then choosing something that is numbing me out?
I think that's a story of a lot of people. That's not my story. Okay. I've always known my purpose was to serve people, and maybe not really fine tuning that and how that's going to evolve. I did back-to-back master programs in transpersonal psychology about 15 years ago, and transpersonal psychology is merging Western psychology with Eastern spiritual traditions. It's called the fourth wave of psychology. That's where we really need to go. It's essentially blending the developing polished ego with developing a spiritual connection. I've always known, and before that I was in hospitality. I managed hotels and resorts. I always knew that I had a wonderful capability to serve my fellow human beings in a supportive way. My story is more based on, and it's funny, we're going to dive into the sacred masculinity and divine feminine, because my story has been based on being alone most of my life, and constantly having, and no blame or anger towards women, but constantly being attracted to a woman, and constantly them saying, wow, you have amazing qualities, an amazing guy, but I just want to be friends, and over and over and over. And my therapist says, Jeff, you need to kind of look at how many times that has not happened, because we tend, as humans, to focus on what's not worked in our past. The lack. Right. And certainly there has been individuals that were attracted to me in that way, that maybe it wasn't mutual, but neither here or there. I, time after time again, was left after that experience thinking, what is wrong with me? What am I lacking? Or am I too much? Am I too needy? Reaching over and grabbing a hold of the bellow right now. Am I too needy, grasping, clinging, what I've come to find out is there's so much to offer within myself. I mean, and for me to even say that, that's huge. you know.
Yeah.
I have amazing, freaking awesome qualities. Amazing, over the top. Okay, and I wonder, maybe I'm just scared that's going to be too much for someone, because my heart is so huge, you know.
Yeah.
So that aside, what I come to find out is, as a man, for whatever reason, I was born into this world being very sensitive, being very attuned with my huge heart and my ability to be compassionate and tender towards someone else, not towards myself, but to other individuals. And embracing what I come to find out as the divine feminine. We each, for anyone that's new on this call or doesn't know, a woman has divine feminine within her, as well as sacred masculinity. Likewise, a man has both the divine feminine and sacred masculinity. My issue as a man it's been very easy, for whatever reason, to drop into my divine feminine, but very challenging to drop into my sacred masculinity. Very challenging for me to drop into being assertive, stating my needs and desires, setting boundaries, guiding someone, leading someone. I was actually a great manager, so I can lead and manage and direct teams within the workplace. One of my greatest pleasures at working at a hotel and resort was assembling teams and putting together cohesive teams. People tell me time, you've been the number one boss I've ever had. So I was great in that ability to bring teams together and lead people in that way. But when it came to leading a woman in the bedroom, for example, or leading a woman in a relationship, completely opposite. And I come to find out, it's not that I'm lacking something, that's my shadow aspect. That's the aspect I have challenges stepping into. And so it's not that I need to fix something. I'm putting my air quotes up right now. I don't need to fix anything about me, but just realize that by being more conscious, maybe, and with some work and maybe more therapy and certainly songwriting, which is a whole other aspect, songwriting, singing, playing the guitar, stepping into creative expression, I have a feeling that sacred masculinity is going to kind of moving my hand towards the center of my being right now, and I do a men's group each week too. Working with men, developing secure relationships with men, and that's going to kind of move that needle, as you will, over to more of a center point where I can harness both the masculine and the feminine. What I've come to find out, I'm reading an awesome book right now by David Data, called, what's it called again?
The Way of the Superior Man.
Thank you. And he talks about, the need. It's not necessary, but he almost says it's necessary to have a balance between the masculine and feminine in relationships, because otherwise the relationship will sooner or later will deviate and probably not last. Yeah.
It's so beautifully put into words. I'm buzzing, because it's like so beautiful to hear this out of a man's mouth, because it's so powerful, because it's new for us, because this wisdom is not learned in our school books. This wisdom is in our hearts, but to tune into our hearts, we need to walk this path in our self-love. And most of the time it's through the shadows, and actually, like always, it's through the shadows. And I see your wrist and it says love, and we were talking about like how important self-love is, and you mentioned something that I totally definitely can personally agree on my personal healing journey, is like having this heart and feeling and being sensitive and loving towards others, but not towards oneself. So, and especially in regards to the feminine and the masculine qualities, and also like trusting, you mentioned in the first place, you know, that it's very hard to trust in something or have faith in something what you can't see, what you can't really experience with your five senses, because it's just so non-logical for us, but it's felt with the heart. But when we grew up in a society where we are programmed and most of the time distracted and walking away from our heart, because like now individual but also collectively to say like, okay, let's like put work into us, we need to compete towards like other companies, towards other men, towards other women, like constantly, like always the distraction, then we are lacking the feminine qualities within us. And when we allow ourselves to balance those dynamics and also becoming aware what does not work right now anymore, what is maybe wounded, from previous like situations or from our parents that we like passed on, we can actually like see the light, and we can embrace it with more playfulness and with more joy. And that's what I like see within you, you know, like it's the beautiful dynamics, not to fix anything, because we don't want to fix anything. We want to understand.
We want to understand. That's a great word. We want to understand, and we want to really cherish. You know, I remember, you know, when I was younger, you know, as an adolescent or even as a child, you know, I wouldn't say I was made fun of, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's my story. You know, because I was a sensitive, you know, or shy. I was shy, you know, and you know, growing up as a boy, and then later on as a man, you know, I got trapped into being the shy kid, or now it's being a full grown man. It's the Mr. Nice Guy. And the nice guys always finish last, you know, and you know, I'm going to be true to who I am. I'm always going to treat a man or a woman, you know, whoever I meet, with compassion and tenderness and love, you know. But what I refuse to do is be Mr. Nice Guy. And when I say being Mr. Nice Guy, I mean, you know, totally, you know, sacrificing myself for someone else. I'm not going to do that in any relationship. You know, I was just talking to someone at lunch today, how it feels good. You know, you're not going to resonate with it, you know, just within this, 30 people here at this retreat. I'm not resonating with every single one of them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I don't have to be your best friend. We connected, you know. If we didn't connect that first day, that's okay, you know, and I'm not going to connect. So I was so steeped into people pleasing and being a doormat, and especially when it came to relationships, you know, trying to, oh man, I never want to go back there again. You know, if a man's listened to this and you got stuck in that, you know, just have compassion for yourself. Please have compassion for yourself, and just start to realize the story, start to realize the patterns. Because if you are continually being placed in the friend zone, and there's plenty of books and there's plenty of podcasts out there to talk about this, but if you're continually placed in the friend zone, or typically labeled as the nice guy, it's something you should look at. And what I offer to say is, don't dramatically change anything. Be acutely aware of when you start to you know, it's about shining light and being conscious of the unconscious, because a lot of times, so often, it's something unconscious that happens, and it's too late before you even realize it. But you know, it's just making little shifts here and there. And so some people can say that might be changing, you know, fixing something. I don't think it's fixing it. It's just kind of shifting your perception and your perspective, if you will. But, you know, start to step into, you know, not trying to people please, you know, and being okay with not befriending everyone, you know, and just being confident of who you are as an individual, you know, and by tapping into realizing what the sacred great qualities you have. I would imagine that's probably what's worked for me. I mean, that's a great question. I'm just trying to think how. Yeah, I guess it comes down to not listening to the story, being aware of what the story may be, and so here's okay. This is I'm just trying to think the answer through. I want it to come from my heart and not come up with some like what I think is a great answer. And what I've done this year. I mean, this is why I love my therapist. And so when people say, you know, what changed for you, it's hard to answer that question right on the spot because there are so many different things went into it. Yeah. Having a therapist for 3 years, having a great therapist who went to a similar graduate program that I did, and her brother's an active heroin addict. So there was some resonance right from the get-go when we started working together 3 years ago. And when I started bouncing in and out of her therapy office, because I would just go MIA for 3 or 4 months, and you know, when I was out there drinking, living on the streets, and then all of a sudden I'd come to on the other side and give her a ring, hey, I'm back. And she said, I will always take you back. You know, that's amazing. That's amazing for a therapist to say that and to continue to work with me. Anyways, what we started doing this year is we started working on all the different aspects of who Jeff is, the light and the dark. Wow. And I don't know if she framed it this way or I did, but I started watching Survivor. You remember the show Survivor? No? Okay. Okay. Survivor is a show where people compete to stay on an island or stay in like Tahiti or some exotic location. 30 people, and they compete to stay on an island, and they make teams. Everyone gets voted off the island, and the winner wins $1 million. Something like that. There's many different versions of it, but that's and then at the end of each episode, it's every 2 or 3 days, they all get in a circle. It's called a tribal council, and they go around and talk about why they should be voted off. Anyways, and somebody gets voted off the island. Yeah. Okay. So, and I don't know if I came up with this or my therapist did, but we decided to let's everyone sit down at the tribal council, me and everyone, all the different aspects of myself, because I don't care who you are listening to this podcast, you have different versions of yourself. You have all kinds of different versions of yourself that you're fighting, in conflict with. Sometimes they retreat, sometimes they come in full force, sometimes you get hijacked by them, sometimes you want to kick them out the car, yada, yada, yada. So what we have been doing this past year is we've been allowing, you know, as my central core self, your core self is sitting in the middle, and every different aspect of yourself gets a chance to go to the little podium or grab the microphone and vent or, you know, express himself. You know, they want to be recognized, they want to be heard, they want to be seen, but they don't get to overtake the whole space. Yeah. You know, my central core self, the one in charge, pretty much, remains in charge, you know, and in this case, nobody gets voted off the island. Everybody gets to stay. So, you know, that aspect of myself, I went through a phase where, and I go through phases where I want to be the alpha male. You know, I think I have to be the alpha male to get the woman, you know, and that's very common when it comes to an individual like me. You know, I'll see a guy at the gym that has tattoos and is like you know, for those that can't see me, which is all of you, I'm blonde and I'm handsome. I'm blonde. Yes, you are. Thank you. Not that I need that validation, but, you know, but growing up, for some reason, I always, and this is just amazing how society and messages from media and movies and TV shows, you know, growing up, for some reason, I was taught that women want the dark, tall, handsome man. You know, so I remember I had cousins who my dad's brother is he married, my dad's brother married an Italian woman. So I had cousins who were dark, and they had to, and their parents were actually very easygoing. They were allowed to listen to freaking Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath. They'd come over to our house. I was brought up on Long Island before we moved to California, but they'd come over to our house on Long Island. They had the long hair. And we're all in our adolescence. We're 13 or 14, long hair. They're in like rock bands and playing Black Sabbath, and I'm like, I want to be that.
Right.
Whereas my home was, my mom was playing like Carly Simon, Fleetwood Mac. Fleetwood Mac is one of my favorite all-time groups. I still love them. But, playing all these like more heart-centered songs, and that's fine. But there was such a disconnect of who I was and who I wanted to be.
Right.
Very alive and well right in my childhood. So I carried that all into my adult years.
Yeah.
So now, not so much now, but previous to my time, and I still, mind you, I'm in a growth stage. So what I'm talking about, I'm not perfect. And when I say I've transformed, all this ebbs and flows, I want that to be very announced right from the get-go. I'm still in process and transformation, and I will be until the day I take my last breath, okay? But I will say that when I'm at the gym, there's still a tendency when I'm doing whatever I'm doing on the gym floor with the weights and whatever, and I see a dark, handsome man or a man with the beard, and it's tattooed all up, and, I'm like, there's still kind of like, yeah, I wish that was me. So instead of, and that could be still present, but it doesn't overtake me. It's still there, and it ebbs and flows. But my therapist, because I always take my hand and I say it goes into the background rather than the foreground. So she always, where are you at? Are you over here? Where's that at? So usually what happens is now, if that happens at the gym, I'll be like, okay, that's interesting. Okay, I can let that be there, but it doesn't rock my freaking world.
Right.
So maybe that's how I'm more confident, because there are very few things that rock my world. I don't know if were you there when I sang and played the guitar the other night?
I was not.
Okay. Well, you missed that.
Oh man.
Okay, that's fine.
I asked you the one I remember, and then I was like, are you playing tomorrow? And then you were,
it kept shifting because people
I'm sorry,
going off to bed. Anyway, so I did play that night, a few songs. Okay. And it went well in one aspect, because here I am. I did it. Mm-hmm. I was courageous enough to do it. But on the other hand, it was like, the first time taking a swing at the plate. I'm not going to hit a freaking home run, Yeah. And it was just, in my opinion, it was like, wow, okay, that was, I had this expectation that it was going to be Bono or Robert Plant, and that's not reality, okay? Yeah. I could have allowed that to really rock my world. I went back to my room and I was like, wow, man, I wonder what they all thought.
Did you ask them?
I got some feedback, but didn't get a lot of feedback the next day. And there were a few people that approached me and said, wow, that was great, And not that I need that validation, but, my point is that low sense of self-worth kind of creeped in a little bit. But then again, I was able to say, you know what? I didn't see anyone else playing the guitar, singing a song, and bust out of their comfort zone. That was a huge out of comfort zone for me.
Oh my God, I would never ever be able to play like the guitar or sing or anything. And I just wanted to say this what you just said with like the, bussing out with the we all have on a larger or smaller degree our shadow aspects, and they won't be gone also when we shine light onto them. We bring them into our awareness and we see them lovingly and we can interact with them, and we can decide to be not longer controlled by them. So what you just said, is really like the key to so much, because you are aware of those things that can come, not must, but they can come into your conscious awareness, and I know this feeling, just like to tell you, I know this feeling so well, when you have feeling, and it comes from here, it comes from, and I'm pointing right now to my pelvic area, it comes from deep down, and it's just like is here on your stomach, and like, you know, like the solar plexus and your self-esteem, and you all of a sudden the voices come in, and it's like, oh, I wonder how they think, like how they thought about that. And then it's like, oh, you could have been better. And then all of a sudden, like this, am I good enough? And then it can, if you just don't like, if you just like, you can't like also force the voice to stop, because it gets louder and louder and louder. So what happens, or what really like, you know, helps me is to just allow those voices to, you know, like come through me, but also lovingly. And I think there's where the compassion comes in, and the love and the self-love to the story that we also created, because there's no way in our entire life that we are worthless. There's no way that we are not good enough. There's no way that XYX, you know, it's just all a story. But it's very important that we are becoming aware of where is the story coming from, why does the story have such a big control and influence of our life, and how can we create another story, and when it's time to let go of the story. So that you are that you are even aware of that you have this residue, you know, of the story creeping in, but also like also saying positive things towards you with like, well, I did not like see anyone else playing. I did not see anyone else singing. I did not anyone. And that is so true, because like what happens is when we just don't push ourselves out of our comfort zone, we don't grow.
We don't grow. Nothing changes.
No.
Nothing changes.
And we are all here to grow, and we are all here to change. And I also wanted to point out what you said about like, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm not like, you know, like enlightened or whatsoever. And we might never be, you know, and it's okay, because we are all here to learn, but we are here to learn to grow from our experiences and our lessons, and to also help others to do the same. And that's just like, I just wanted to pinpoint that out, because that's what you do.
On my laptop. What does that say?
Intentional excellence. I love that. And that's true. It's all about the intention. It's all about like the consciousness behind it.
I'm striving to be excellent in everything I do. Personal, professional life, creative expression, striving for excellence, but you're realizing I'm not going to be perfect. Because I used to be a perfectionist. Used to be. And I'm like, I have no desire to continue that route.
I mean, how far did it bring you? Like, you know, striving to be perfectionist, because I have a lot of friends and clients who are having this pattern of like, I want to be perfect.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting for me. It's exhausting for people you hang with. Yeah, and you know, you're going to fall short. You know, I want to mention something that's on my heart, and I don't know how much time we have, but
for your heart, always.
Okay, good answer. Because the shame is an aspect, you know, probably doesn't get talked about a lot. You know, shame, I think, is something that gets swept under the rug. You know, and I had a very powerful moment yesterday, as I talked about in the closing circle, if you remember.
I do.
And I'm going to tell a story that's pretty revealing of how deep the shame went for me. I have a memory of looking at a photo album. This is pre this is pre-iPhones, guys. So yes, we had photo albums at one point where we took pictures and had to get the pictures developed and put them in a photo album. Okay, so I was born 1970, so I'm a 70s, 80s guy. Anyways, I'm like, I don't know, I'm gonna ballpark 7 years old, and I'm looking through the photo album. And I'm looking through the infant pictures, and I see I have two older brothers. I have one brother who's 4 years older than me. He's the oldest in the family. And I have another brother who's a year and a half older than me. And a younger sister who's about a year and a half, 2 years younger than me. I'm the middle one. So I'm looking through the pictures, and I see one of my oldest brother, Fred. And he's the typical older male boy, very high energy, attention seeker, confident, totally different from who I am, and turned out to be very successful, has married, has kids, done very well for himself. And then another brother who was a little more, not as confident with himself, but and so the pictures, Fred, the eldest one, he's, I don't know, 4 or 5. He's like, it was obviously during Halloween because he had like Indian costume on, and he was just playing around, being goofy, And so Paul, the one that's a year and a half older than me, he didn't have the deep-rooted insecurities, but he wasn't as confident as Fred was. But the picture of him was it's adorable. He's like an infant, like, I don't know, less than a year old, and he has like the Pee Wee Herman. He had like he still has black, like darker hair, and Pee Wee Herman hair came up like this. How Pee Wee Herman hair come up like in the middle. It's adorable.
Yeah.
And he's looking at me like, oh my gosh. And we'll skip me for a second, and then my sister, we have a little bit Irish in us. And so she had the red hair, and she's a picture of her when she was like 3 or something. And she looks adorable.
Cute.
Then we came to my picture. And I remember when I looked at my picture, I'm like, oh, no. No. And can you see the sadness in my eyes?
I can.
It was just me of like a very young infant, with my mouth open, and I just looked what I thought. I can't even tap into that word right now, but I remember, I probably didn't say it out loud. I was like, oh, that's not me, is it? And I don't know if I said grotesque, but that word came up a few times when I mentioned this to my therapist years ago. And that's what I thought of myself back then. Like, no, that's not me. And even just, I can feel the emotion of the sadness I feel. That's not how I feel about that person now, but I'm tapping into that emotion just for this podcast. And so that was what I feel deeper. That doesn't comprise of every reason I always did that, throw my life away with the addiction, but that's certainly a huge, huge part of it.
Yeah.
I only say that if anyone is dealing with shame, please, please, please take time with it and, work with a therapist, or try to get to a point where you can really feel that wound, where it's coming from. And it might not be a story where you're looking at a picture. It might be, maybe you went through a trauma, for a man or a woman, some sort of trauma that the end result is deep-rooted shame. I urge you to really take time to heal that wound, because when you begin to heal that wound, and it's probably not going to be an overnight process, it's been kind of like, if you weren't there on the hike we did, we're talking about how sometimes the journey is very cyclical. In Western society, we think it's linear. We cross something one time, well, guess what? You're going to come back to it again and again and again. You might cross one threshold one time and move on to something else, but there's certain dynamics in your life you're going to have to go through, peeling a layer of the onion, right?
Yes.
A few times. So I had to deal with that, and I was able finally to get to a point where I mentioned in the closing circle, I'll say this to wrap this little segment up. I was able to look myself in the mirror yesterday and see myself as not as like this handsome, because I think I'm handsome and fit. I'm 53 years old. I'm pretty much in shape, guys. But not even looking at that, I can say that I'm just going to be silly with it and actually feel that way. I'm a handsome guy, all right? And that's fine. I can own that, right?
Yes.
But even that aside, just see in myself in the mirror a reflection that's, wow, I'm a God being. I'm a sacred God being. And if I can shift someone, just one person that's listening to this, to have that transition, my job on this earth is done. Because that is magical. that's a miracle that can happen.
When you said this yesterday in the closing circle, I was when Lauren asked you, hey, Jeff, did you watch already, like, did you see yourself already in the mirror? Did you look in the mirror? And then when you said no, and then, you know, like you did look in the mirror and you were sharing this in the closing circle, I felt it in the deepest cell of my heart, the freeing within your expression and the divine within you. And anyway, this, you know, when you are with other like-minded souls who help you to remember where we are coming from and to see the divinity in each and every one of us, it helps you to understand that you don't need to understand how faith and trust works. It is just a feeling and in state of being and in state of experiencing it. And I believe that you can only experience that feeling in a state of despair and in a state of frustration, and when you are really on the floor. But the floor always has a door where you can move upon and walk through, and you will be held by others who walk this path before, but they are waiting on the other side. And many times you just don't see them there yet. Why didn't you, and this is just a question in regards to our circle, what prevented you from looking in the mirror after the first time you got the message to look in the mirror? Was there anything specific?
Probably because I didn't have 100% trust or faith that that's what the end result was going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest with you. Because it's not the first time I've made an attempt to do that.
Remember when Derek said, "Don't look up when you want to think about the message"? Because there's no way anymore that you need to look down.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to just go to what my heart's saying is, I think sometimes there's a lot of energy here.
Yeah.
When I say here, not just in this room, in this building, on this property, just within myself. And you have to understand this year has been transformative in so many different ways.
Oh, I believe you.
Writing 3 songs so far within the last 2 months, singing, composing with my rock star music teacher, 2 songs, learning to play the guitar, voicing some of those lyrics out in the public with her.
Wow.
Voicing some powerful U2 songs that are touching my heart with her. Being in Mount Shasta, crazy heart chakra energy, there's a lot of energy and that's why when I came to this retreat, I think the first day we were asked, what's your intention? And I almost was like, I really don't have an intention other than, I think I even said, I don't know what I said, but I remember afterwards we were at dinner and I said, I just want to keep doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't want to change anything why change something that's not broken type of thing, so just kind of keep moving forward. But I think what I resisted and I'm only going to what's coming to this full. I'm trying not to say what me wants to say, some smart, I was going to say smart ass, but some like answer sounds like really politically or spiritually correct. I think I had to allow the energy to really come into full center and coalesce, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because there was no doubt. There wasn't like even a resistance when I came up to the mirror that's in the meditation room. And it was like, I had thought, my expectation for a few seconds was, oh, how long is this going to take? How long am I going to sit here and stand here and look at myself in the mirror and wonder something different from other than when I tried to do this before? And it was like within a few seconds, it was like, I see a God being in front of me. And I said a violent flame invocation right after that, and I said a self-love invocation after that 3 times, and walked away. It was done. So to answer your question, I don't think the energy was ready to make that happen until I was ready.
Until you're ready.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
And that makes me think of what you just said. Like it's not linear. It always comes back in circle. And there's always a time where there is still something that you are picking up, because there's still something that you need to learn. And it helps when you think about this life more than like a game, like a beautiful role game where you actually collect missing puzzle pieces and leveling up with each of them, and then you going back and then you collecting a different missing puzzle pieces, but you couldn't have picked up this puzzle piece if you didn't learn the lesson from the last level. And on one point there is this deep trust and this like trust and trust, faith and faith moment.
Exactly.
Where you just feel like this blasting heart opening within you, and you just can't go backwards.
You can't. I will say, I can sit here, and I'm not saying this to get brownie points from anyone. Once you tap into that, well, I have moments of self-doubt, sure. Especially when it comes to performing,
And you're human.
There's actually rock and roll music stars actually get nervous before they get on stage, right? So I can own that, and I think Derek even says, our teacher says, you will have moments of self-doubt and trepidation and fear. That's human.
Yeah.
But never will I again in this lifetime or future lifetimes will I have that dreadful shame that I am nothing other than a God being. And if you can make that shift, wow. Because then that's the what I call, I just thought of like, that's the baseline, that's the foundation to work on these other things, such as the sacred masculinity and keeping the divine feminine in check, and going into service and being, having integrity. That's the baseline for that. Because without that understanding or confidence that you are a God being, all that just becomes like me. I live in California, so I just think of an earthquake. It becomes unstable. Mm-hmm. Everything just kind of, and for whatever, what I did want to say is, I just still don't have understanding. It wasn't like, I know, okay, childhood, I just certainly, I have the mother wound, and, in the certain dynamics of my childhood that weren't, not perfect. I don't think anyone's is. I don't think I had any major traumas in childhood, but what I want to tell people is it is awesome to explore your childhood and have a baseline understanding of what is going into the equation of what perhaps is going on in your unconscious. But if you you don't have to fully understand that to move forward. And I'm a perfect example of that, because at some point, that's another thing that I wrote down right before I came here. I made a decision to step out of playing a victim and to move into my sovereign empowerment. That is key. That is so key in any forward movement and path you're on. If you're still, I just ownership for my story. If I still drop into playing a victim and poor me, and it's not my fault, and blaming my parents, or blaming other individuals, blaming this woman because she didn't like me, blaming that woman because yada, 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 I'm not gonna go anywhere. I need to step out of playing a victim and into full empowerment. And I think that is very much the sacred masculine.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Step into owning what's yours. People make mistakes all the time. Parents make mistakes. They're not fully evolved. No one's fully evolved. So parents, they're not going to be perfect. But at some point, and this was told to me years ago, and I couldn't step into it. But at some point, you need to take ownership for who you are as an individual and what you're doing. But you can't do that.
You're suffering.
You're going to suffer.
Yes.
Sooner or later. Yeah.
This is amazing, and this is definitely not the last time we have this podcast.
No, I have a lot. I'm a quiet person, but when I become passionate about something, my heart speaks to me, and this is all I have to say. Hopefully 85-90% of it is coming from the heart. I do have an ego, and maybe a little bit is coming from me, but most of it I try to keep. I don't know if that's evident or not, but I hope that this is coming from the heart, and it feels like it is. So,
Jeff, it is. It is coming from the heart, and I can feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel you. Like, I watch you, and I feel you. So I am, and there's always there needs to be ego with it, because like, what is Ray always saying? Like, we are here, we are human beings, we have our ego. It's not about. I was talking to a friend, and he was like, I don't even think I have an ego. And I'm like, okay.
Good luck with that.
So it's like, it's about polishing the ego.
Polishing the ego. Yeah.
Polishing
I use the word refine the ego. So polish and refine. Yeah. And that's one, let's just, my segment, I'll end there, or my little spiel. I used to think I had to get rid of the freaking ego. How wrong was I there? Yes, we need the ego, and you need the ego depending on what your calling is in life. You're going to need your ego to hold your ground, to set your boundaries, to be assertive in some ways. You need that.
Yes.
But also keep that in check. Like you said, polish the ego while developing. This is why I love the integrated model, and I would love, maybe on our next talk, which I think probably will happen, I would love to talk more about integrative recovery. And
I would love that.
This paradigm of 12-step model.
Yes, please.
All we have. Great, the 12-step works for a lot of people, but guess what? It didn't work for me, and it doesn't work for a lot of other people. So the integrative model that I'll just shine just a small light on here is the integrative component of you're integrating, you're blending, polishing the ego while you're developing a connection with spirituality, whatever that spirituality is to you. It could be something that's very religious. It could be something that's very just one love. It could be this whole different way to explore that within yourself, But, you can work on your mind, but not really have a central core relationship with yourself, and guess what? Sooner or later, you're going to be dancing some dicey territory. Likewise, if you develop a core relationship with spirit, and your ego is still running amok, or you have a very weak ego or a very strong ego, guess what? You're going to be running amok at some point. So it's about aligning those two, and I think really embodying sacred masculinity with divine femininity kind of naturally will align us too, if that makes sense or not.
It does make sense. And this is like the ancient wisdom that we all have within us. It's all stored within our codes, within our genes, and within our DNA. It's just a matter of fact if we allow ourselves to let it out.
Mm-hmm.
So that also means taking responsibility. And I love that you touched base on that, in owning our wounds and owning our stuff that happened to us, and really like rephrase it and saying it happened for us. And yes, we need to move through this cycle of like victimhood. We need to, because it's another stage of evolution. But on one point, we are not the children anymore, and on one point we need to embrace that we can hold ourselves, and that we need to hold our inner child, and to grow up and to take ownership, and to understand also what the sacred feminine, divine feminine is, to understand what the sacred divine masculine is, and to understand yin and yang, to look also in the history books in regards to that, and not only like the Western modalities. And this is definitely a point where I want to touch base with the next podcast with you, because we were talking about that. But I feel today it feels really round, and and like you said, there's a difference between like arrogance and confidence. And I think this is what it all comes down to, that, and where we find the confidence also within us. And it all has to do with love. And I'm pointing right now on Jeff's wrist because he has a beautiful bracelet that says love on it.
Yeah, I'm also wearing it's a bracelet that's called Forged in Valhalla. Anyways, I have Scandinavian blood running through me, so it's about being a Viking, so it's harnessing. I think it was very appropriate, harnessing masculine, within me, so I don't have to get the tattoos or be the Harley Davidson guy. If I just, tap into my masculine power by wearing this bracelet. Anyways.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Before we close, is there anything else on your heart to say, that you would like to share, or whatever comes to you before I say?
The only thing that's coming to me, just honor who you are. And if you're a man or a woman, listen to this podcast, this beautiful podcast. Honor who you are. And if you are a man and you are sensitive and you're diving into maybe you're doing yoga class or meditation class, or, stuff that maybe in the past has not been so manly, just roll with it, and don't, because that's something I've had to, being a man sometimes, it's like, men don't see therapists, and men don't tap into their feelings and all that jazz. And so honor who you are, honor the different energies that are within you. And just don't go by the story that you may have heard through the media and social constructs of Western society in general. Just honor who you are, and things will eventually fall into place. I guarantee you. Yeah, that's all I have.
That's like the most you can gift, and this is like it's such an amazing podcast. Thank you so much for you showing yourself vulnerable, showing yourself also very strong and very, straightforward. And it was just like, it was a beautiful symphony again with like talking to you.
It was like this, the first time when it was being recorded. So I didn't think we were going to actually reenact that. I mean, we didn't reenact it, but we kind of just followed where we left off. And
yeah.
So, I felt very comfortable, and which is amazing to me, because if you would have approached me even a year ago, I would have been like, well, I don't know. I think you probably noticed, I probably said, I think right in the very beginning, I said, well, let's maybe do that when we all get back. That was a way of me saying, I'm not now.
Yeah.
But my heart was telling me, again, sometimes you have to listen to your heart. Get out of you, go listen to your heart. My heart was saying, Jeff, this is something that you are capable of doing, and you should do now in this vortex, a beautiful vortex that we're in. Because I knew once we get back home, I was just probably gonna not make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and thank you for approaching me, having the faith that I would shine through like I did. So you obviously saw something in me.
I sure did.
For seeing that and having faith in my ability to do a podcast with you. Yeah.
Well, namaste, right?
Right.
Like we learned.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but it's really true, and I totally like to close this up and wrap this up today. What I really gained also from the experience to be here and also being with all of you is we are here as human beings to learn to tap into our own recognition of our own divinity. And many times we can only see that through the others. And when I say that I see you, it's because I see you. And that also means that I see myself. And that's like the most beautiful thing we can actually like gift ourselves, because there's this one saying of like, you can only see the depth of someone else as you explored your own inner depth. Oh my God, it's just totally different, the sentence, but what
I understand what you're saying, totally.
And that's so true. And sometimes we do feel alone, and sometimes we feel lonely. And that's because, and that's definitely, like I want to say, that's definitely something I want to start the next podcast with you.
Certainly, because there's some validity to that statement alone, and that prevents a lot of people from moving forward or from taking a jump off point in the other direction, i.e. ending in their life.
Yeah.
Some sort of way.
Yeah.
So that would be a great segue into the next call, because that is very true. We feel so alone. We think we're the only one going through this, and just in my music alone, how if it can just touch one person and not make them feel so alone.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this awesome guy got through that. Yeah. And the people listening to this call, you've only heard a little snippet of what I went through in the last 10 years. So yeah, more to be revealed.
More to be revealed, because I also, for you guys who are listening, I was like 1 week ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he has sex addiction. And in regards to that, it's like I'm asking him, because I'm interested, I'm asking him, why do you feel it comes from? And the answer, after a couple of like other questions, was because I'm afraid to be alone. And it's like what we're all longing for is intimacy and is connection. And it's just another layer of like how it looks for each and every one of us. And this is what I wanted to say. Thank you for honoring your path. Thank you for honoring yourself. Thank you for exploring your self-love, because this is what we all have within us. And thank you for also being in this beautiful container here and also in this whole week, because for sure, like we have all puzzle pieces individual for each and every one of us. Yes. And I know that you will touch so many hearts, including my heart. And for that, I will be forever grateful.
Likewise. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on Masculinity Now with Arabella Tornau. And thank you for your interest in your heart. If you like this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. so more people who can benefit from it can be reached. Take care, and we hear us soon.